All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is great to see everyone. And no, I am not Mike McMullen. Somehow, one of the benefits apparently of being the president of the chamber is you get to go on all these free trips or something like that. So he is somewhere else today and left me in charge or something like that. So I'm Richard Turner. I serve as the executive director of the Community Media Center, but also as your board chair of the Chamber of Commerce. And welcome to our legislative wrap-up luncheon meeting. It's great to see everyone, and it's also great to have a number of dignitaries here for this meeting in our annual tradition, a long tradition of reviewing proposed legislation, working with our legislative committee, and this is your chance to hear what were the results. You heard our legislative kickoff. I hope most of you were there to hear what was potentially being proposed. We knew a lot has happened and a lot has changed since then, so this is a great opportunity in terms of what our committee is doing to be able to present our state legislators here to give you their sort of wrap-up, I guess. And so we'll hear from several members of them shortly. But in the meantime, I want to at least recognize some of the folks who are in the room. So from our Carroll delegation from the state, we have delegates. I'm going to ask you to hold your applause to the end here. We have Delegate Eric Boucher, Delegate April Rose, and Delegate Chris Tomlinson are here. So thank you for being here. Also, members of our school board, President Tara Battaglio, if you'd stand so we can make sure we can see you, as well as Vice President Steve Wilsler and Dr. Greg Malveaux is here, all right? From our Tawnytown City Council, we have Diane Foster, Jim McCarran, and Chris Tillman are here. And we also have the president, of course, of Carroll Community College, Dr. Rose Mintz, is with us. And we'll hear from her in just a moment. Also want to recognize Denise Beaver, who is our Director of Economic Development for the county. So Denise. Hopefully I've met all my requirements for introducing all of our elected officials, or did I miss anybody who might have snuck in? All right. Megan did a great job out there on the front desk. Thank you. So now I'll recognize our past chairs of the Chamber of Commerce. For our board of directors, Steve Wantz, Andrea Bursler, Steve Aquino. I don't know if I saw Steve, as well as Dave Bollinger. And give a hand to them. Thank you for your leadership. And then, of course, if I'd have the current members of the board of directors please stand for the chamber. So now I'd like to recognize the sponsors. Of course, as you know, for our chamber events, we are really appreciative of all the sponsors who come in and help us to have these events happen. And so for our first sponsor, I'm going to invite Dr. Rose Mintz, who's also our host here at the Community College.
So Richard mentioned results a moment ago, and I have to take the opportunity to remind everyone that the Carroll Peep Show is now going on, and currently our Lynx is in second place, and you know we'd very much like to be in first place, so please vote often. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome everyone this afternoon, especially members of our delegation who are able to be here with us today, Eric Boucher, April Rose, and Chris Tomlinson. And also to extend our thanks to Senators Justin Reedy and Chris West and Delegate Joshua Stanko for representing us so well in Annapolis this past session. So welcome to Carroll Community College. It is an honor and a privilege today to host our legislative wrap-up session. As president of this very fine institution, I first want to express my deep gratitude to each of you for your continued commitment to education and the well-being of our community, and for the work that all of you do to support us. Your leadership and the support you provide are vital to ensuring that institutions like Carroll can thrive and continue to serve as a foundation for our students' success. This past legislative session has been a testament to the power of collaboration and the shared understanding that education is the key to the future of our state and our local communities. At Carroll Community College, we are dedicated to providing accessible, high-quality education that equips students with the skills, knowledge, and confidence to pursue their dreams and contribute meaningfully to the economy and our society. And especially to our delegates, your efforts have played a special role in advancing this mission, and you model those skills in your work in Annapolis on our behalf. Today's wrap-up provides us an important opportunity to reflect on this recent legislative session and how the decisions that impact our students, staff, and county will carry us forward. It is an opportunity to further strengthen the dialogue between our college and our legislative partners and between all of you who support our chamber. Together, we can continue to innovate, advocate, and ensure that our community remains a place where education is a pathway to opportunity. So thank you once again for your leadership and for being here with us today. We appreciate all you do, and we look forward to continuing our work together to support the strong future of Carroll County and vote for the Lynx. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Rose, and thanks for hosting us here. Just as a quick testament to Leadership Carroll, if you haven't been involved, I happened to be in the class with Rose, and it was a great opportunity really to get to know her and also to network with the other folks. So take advantage of that opportunity you can see what happened in terms of leadership development with her now in leadership here at the college. So maybe that will happen to you if you take on Leadership Carroll, right? You never know. All right, our next sponsor, Zach Tomlin from Tomlinson Technologies. So Zach, Tomlin, excuse me.
I did it all the time, it's okay. Hey everybody, let me see, let me pull this out. So how are we feeling about the 2025 legislative session? Yeah, that's what I thought. So here we are, we live in a red county, in a blue state, in a red country. We're consistently getting the squeeze here in Carroll County. It's a difficult time to live and run a business here. Partisan politics have consistently gotten in the way of pragmatic progress, and we often pay the price for that. As an influential leader in Carroll County, like my grandfather before me and his father before him, we can no longer afford to allow the theater in Annapolis, the reality show that has become the nation's capital, continue. We don't want the red answers. We don't want the blue answers. We simply want the answers. And, but I want to thank every member of our D5 and D42 delegation representing our home. Even though we belong to the state's minority party, they've advocated hard for us this session. They really did. But we're highly outnumbered down there. So long gone are the days when we could disagree in the afternoon and at this, and in the evening, come together and grab a beer. So basically, when I ran for Senate, I used the slogan "Educate, Empower, Unite." And educate to mitigate damage caused by the infodemic of misinformation and the cherry picking of facts that may suit political agendas, but I've seen destroy our community. Next page. Empower. Many of us feel unheard. Our children are being tormented in school. Funding to help our most vulnerable populations, specifically our special needs community, is being slashed. Cybersecurity threats are the worst that I've ever seen since I built my first computer at age 12, and we're throwing a 3% tax on the victims when they ask for help from a professional such as myself. These are not partisan issues. These issues impact everyone, regardless of political affiliation, social view, or the diversity of our backgrounds. I draw inspiration from the voices within our community, from brilliant minds, many of which are in this room right now, and that feel like speaking up is an act in futility. We must empower them to speak up and share their stories, their ideas, their vision, because the people that live here are our most valuable resources, and they often go underutilized. Unite. I've seen time and time again the incredible feats we can accomplish when we come together. The elected officials today have an important job to do, but we can't leave it all on them. I want to ask every one of you, or I want to thank every one of you guys for your hard work this session, and I also want to ask everyone in this room to let your voices be heard. You're more powerful than you think, and we all need your help. Maryland needs your help. So don't just leave it on our elected officials. We got to go down there ourselves. So that's what I got from this session. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Zach. I expanded the Tomlinson family there for a moment. I should know Zach Tomlin because he also was in our class for Leadership Carroll. So, and our last sponsor is the media sponsor, which instead of me doing double duty, I'm going to bring up Susan Reed, who is our Director of Business Development for the Community Media Center of Carroll County.
You all probably want to know what it's like working for Richard, don't you? I'm going to keep it a secret. But it's a pleasure to be here today. As he said, I'm Susan Reed. I'm the Director of Business Development over at the Community Media Center, or as we fondly call it, CMC. And since joining CMC in November, I've been so impressed at how deeply this organization connects and enriches our community through media. So the CMC is a pillar of local engagement, bringing people together and providing platform where all voices can be heard. We're a nonprofit, but not what you might expect from a nonprofit. Our mission is simple, yet powerful, is to connect our community through media that informs, educates, and empowers. From high school sports coverage to municipal meetings that keep the citizens informed about local governance, CMC preserves and amplifies the voices and events that define Carroll County. So as this is an election year, for the county's 8 municipalities, we're in the midst of producing and live streaming candidate forums on 3 consecutive Thursday nights. Sykesville is tonight, and Westminster is next week. We're also recording 5-minute video profiles to allow candidates to take their message directly to the voters. We've created a voter's guide on our website for anyone to learn about the candidates, watch the forums, and get information about when and where to vote. However, here comes the spiel. To keep these vital programs thriving, we really need your support. And as more consumers cut the cord from cable and switch to streaming, our funding is declining. To adapt, we're developing alternative funding, including sponsorship recognition for supporting CM Sportsnet, which many of our supporters here at this table today are supporters of that program, and we are so incredibly grateful for their support. We also have our Veterans Oral History Project, now in its 10th year, and our brand new project, which is a collaborative documentary about individuals that have developmental and intellectual disabilities and how they integrate into our community and make a difference. The value of our sponsorships is aligning your business with our audience, which has grown over 400% since the fall of 2023. So invest in a more informed, connected, and empowered Carroll County. Together, we can create opportunities for everyone to engage with issues that matter. You'll find flyers on your table with more details, and I'd be happy to discuss how you can support our mission after this event. You can find coverage on our website, carrollmediacenter.org, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and airing on cable channels 19, 23, and HD 1072. Don't forget, watch local.
All right, great. Great job, Susan. Thanks very much. And now we'll get on with the show here. Let me introduce Donna Bloom. We'll start with our program and ask our delegates to come on up to the front table here. And Dana, come on up, and we'll have you kick things off.
Good afternoon. So, here we are again. You know, I have to say that this year was memorable for a lot of different reasons, but I think it's probably the first time in a very long time that so few of the bills that we addressed and the legislative committee actually made it to a committee vote. I think that's testament to the rather single-mindedness of the assembly this year. Speaking to that, there's a little chart on your table, and thank you to Becky to making it readable. Yes. And it gives you a list of all of the letters that we did write, whether we supported it, asked for amendments, or we opposed it. And you'll notice there's a whole lot in the didn't go anywhere column. There were a few very last-minute updates where, in a lot of senses, very good reasons, while the bill itself didn't pass, the provisions of maybe that bill got wrapped into something else or the overall budget. So the one bill that was kind of been going as the anti-squatters bill, that was House Bill, I'll find it in a second, 556. Senator Reedy was able to get that wrapped into another bill, so that passed. The one about unpaid parental leave, defining the employer, which was a very strange situation, that got passed actually at the very last minute. And a couple of others just kind of got wrapped into the overall budget or in other bills. And so we did have a few successes. But I think our delegation here will give us some more details of that. So without any further ado, we're going to start with Delegate Rose.
Okay, this is a new thing. Is this working? Oh, okay, great. You were very kind in saying it was an interesting year. I think since I've been there, since 2015, this was probably the worst, most brutal session that we've had. It was very, very difficult. And so I'm going to focus mostly on my committee, which is Economic Matters, because we dealt with a lot of the energy bills. And that was very, very contentious. As you know, the green energy agenda is very aggressive in the state of Maryland. You know, California started this, and they're actually starting to dial some things back, but we're still being very aggressive. So there were a lot of bills that were very much focused on taking away our local control. You're seeing that in the paper right now with PSEG suing over 100 people in our county for access to get on their property. They kept saying, well, this isn't about eminent domain, even though that was the first thing they said when they were on the news. And, you know, we were able to communicate that to them quite a few times. One thing I found very interesting, and I know Commissioner Kyler will be on Fox today at 5:50, I believe. He was being interviewed about just that situation. He said, what can you tell me that can be helpful in this interview? And I was able to say it to the PSEG guys, and I'm not sorry. I called them out in front of the PSC, and I said, I just want you to be cognizant of and assure me that you know that they had to pay a $6.6 million fine on their last project because they were being unforthcoming in their process. So I think that tells you what kind of actors that we're dealing with. So that's going to be front and center. We also had an issue with solar. So the solar siting, they're taking away control. They tried to sell it as, well, we're only saying 5% of your property can be used for, made to be used for solar. But the committee chair even said, well, I'd rather it be 10%. And then he called out Carroll County. And quite frankly, I'm getting sick of Carroll County getting called out in Annapolis for a number of reasons. And I wasn't going to get up on that particular bill, but I said, well, since you said Carroll County, now you're going to hear from me. And I said, we have a local planning commission. We have county commissioners. We have a master plan. In fact, I think I saw it advertised that they want people to come and participate. Why bother? Because the state's just going to come in and tell us what to do, because they do not respect local control. We know how we want to use our land. We do a really good job. And quite frankly, I would prefer if they just stay out of our business. That's all I'm going to really say on that. We had a couple really good bills in. Delegate Pippi and I put in a bill that would have protected our property rights from eminent domain to build power lines. Went nowhere, of course. Anything that we came up with that was to protect local control and property rights, they just shot down. But that's what they do. I know Chris is going to talk about taxes. I didn't ask Eric what he was going to talk about. But overall, We raised $1.8 billion with a B in new taxes and fees. Chris is going to go into more detail. One of the worst things they did to us is they kicked back $144 million of stuff that the state used to cover back to the county. And our county is going to struggle to cover that. So they're going to come to who? The taxpayer. And they're going to do the best that they can, but it's really, between the blueprint and that, it's becoming increasingly difficult for the job that they have to do. So I feel for them, and I know they're doing the best that they can. One good thing that we were able to accomplish, Delegate Stanko, that wasn't able to be here today, is on the Appropriations Committee, and he was able to do a really good job working on the waiver for provisions of the blueprint. So, and before I came up here, he actually texted us that we went from having only 42 emails to the AIB to get this waiver to over 1,000. In 5 days. And that was collectively from all of us reposting that and the school board and everybody getting that word out. So that's a very good thing. And hopefully we'll be able to get that waiver. And I think it's a two-year waiver we're asking for.
Yeah, it allows us to make a good faith effort for FY26 and FY27.
Yes, so that will really help. It doesn't solve the overall problem. There was a former Democrat senator on Fox, Jim Broshin, and he said it best. The blueprint is going to bankrupt the state of Maryland, and it's just it's onerous, and they are very dug in on it. And while there are some good things in it, I like the workforce development. I like things of that nature, but overall, it's just too expensive. We can't afford it. We're in a huge deficit. They're talking about bringing us back, possibly in September or October, so that we can pass more taxes, because we're still not balanced. And I'll let Chris talk about the rest of the taxes. You know, we work very, very hard. I'm in the leadership. I'm the assistant minority leader. And we really work hard on amendments, floor strategy, arguments. We had a record this year of 13 floor amendments that were accepted. Since I've been there, we're lucky if we get 1 or 2. So 13 is pretty good, I think. And I'll end on something positive and kind of funny. I shared an office with our assistant whip, Delegate Wayne Hartman from Ocean City. So one of the few funny things, last year at Mako, we went on a tour in Ocean City on a boat, and he took us to this place called the Hideaway Cafe, which is the origin of the Orange Crush, apparently. I did not know. So we went there, and we had just found out that Delaware had just passed, I think that week or the week before, they made it their state cocktail. Well, Wayne was not going to have that. So he said, I'm not going to repeat exactly what he said. He said, oh, that's not going to stand. So he put that bill in. They were not going to pass it because Senator Zucker had some student that wanted the state mineral or something, chromite. Yeah. I still don't even know what that is. And I don't think we even mine for it anymore. But he wasn't going to let his bill pass unless we amended onto the chromite bill. So now we have chromite and the Orange Crush. My one victory, we jokingly call the eyelash bill. So it came to our attention that for the women in here, these are not just false eyelashes. It's actually eyelash extensions that get attached to your eyelid. So my bill did pass. So for $56, you can become a lash technician, which is a great entry level into the cosmetology business because lash bars and things are popping up. Now, apparently it takes like 2.5 hours. I can never be quiet or still that long, so I will never do it. So in our office, we said, well, we got eyelashes and Orange Crushes. So there you go. And I'll be happy to answer questions later.
That was wonderful. Fortunately, I don't need any eyelash extensions. They sound painful. Well, I want to thank Delegate Rose for her service and her presentation. Us three sit in the back corner on the floor, and we're so heavily outnumbered, it creates a sense of bonding for us that we're against the odds, and it draws us closer. Sometimes it's discouraging, but when we come back and we see the faces of you, our constituents, we realize why we're down there sacrificing and working so hard. And we have faith and hope that things will turn around. And we also realize that things would be so much worse for us if we weren't there. So even though it's frustrating, it's an honor to serve. And I look forward to trying to accomplish more next year for you to try to reverse this. I am a businessman. I've been in business 31 years. So I'm going to approach this presentation from being a business person since I'm looking at business people. I have never had it so tough as a businessman in my life, and I don't know whether I'll be in business next year. That's how bad it's getting for me. I'm in manufacturing. And I'll share with you, I used to be the chairman of American Welding Society in the state of Maryland in the early 90s. And I remember when we had a thriving manufacturing sector in the state of Maryland. You know what that gave us? It gave us a tremendous economy. It gave us high-paying blue-collar jobs where people could support their families. And the policies that continuously get enacted by our General Assembly destroy that. It drives businesses out. And there's a whole long list, which Delegate Thompson will go over, about the onerous taxes they're putting on us. I think all of us in business realize, and I say it time and time again, that if you change any element in the equation, you alter the product. And they forecast that, we raise this tax and we'll get this net from it. We all know that you change the equation, your net always winds up lower. And just like Delegate Rose said, they're looking at bringing us back. They can never have enough for tax money. And I think it goes down to the fact that most of the people down there have never walked in your shoes. They don't know what it's like to get a return on investment. You say return on investment, and they give you this blank stare. They don't understand it. They just think they can raise their taxes and stay in business. Or our state's a big business, and they keep destroying their economy. And one of the things I focus in on at the end is this reparations bill they pass, because the financial burden that could put on us will definitely drive the death nail into our state financially. I did some research that in the 1860 census for Maryland, there was a little over 87,000 slaves in the state of Maryland, and there was a citizenry of around 690,000. So I extrapolated out the ratio percentage if they had descendants. It looks like there's potential, this is a ballpark figure to decide what we're potentially faced with, is over 850,000 descendants of slaves. Well, we'll throw out a ballpark figure. Say there's $10,000 in reparations. That's over an $8.5 billion liability just in payouts. But who knows what the potential payout could be. But worse than that for us financially is the bureaucracy to implement this. We're already seeing the whole mess that the Child Abuse Sexual Victims Act has caused. The lawyers are feeding on this. They're jamming it up in courts. And if we move forward with this reparations, you don't have the lawyers feeding off of it, jammed up in court. It's going to cost us billions of dollars, not only in the payout, but the bureaucracy and financing the legal battles to do this. So I'm really concerned about the damage that could cause, and I'm hoping they come to some reasonable agreement to try to develop a better settlement on this. I have advocated, thanks to Richard Turner, passing legislation to give our African-American ancestors that fought in the Civil War recognition for their service. And more important than giving them the recognition is the incorporating of that knowledge into our educational system. The best thing we can do for our African-American community is to give them respect and recognition for what they went through. I'm a history buff, and it bothers me in my heart and soul to know that these men during the Civil War served for less pay. They died, they sacrificed their limbs, and they come back to their community and they get Jim Crow laws to discriminate them. We need to recognize that in our history books and educate people to inspire them that there was a tremendous sacrifice before us, and the best that we can do in our future is honor their sacrifice and uplift all of us as a community. And I'm really looking forward to trying to turn the economy around in the state of Maryland, but it's such an uphill battle for all of us here. Don't think that we're not doing everything we can, but we're against the odds. But more important than us being there representing you, as mentioned earlier by Tomlin, is your voice matters. The only power we as your representatives have is the voice that you bring to the table. Because you call and email their offices, they don't know what party affiliation you are. They'll treat you with respect. We, on the other hand, we're part of the bad guys, so to speak, and they really don't listen to us. But when they hear your voice, you make the difference. You are the most powerful weapon we as your representatives have, and it's an honor to serve, and I look forward to taking questions. Thank you very much.
How much time are we getting? How many minutes?
I'll give you 5.
Okay. I'm going to try to keep track. All right. Okay, so the budget, going into this year's session, we knew walking in that we were looking already at a $3 billion budget deficit. How we were going to solve that, there were a lot of different things thrown out there. Every week it seemed to get worse. We kept getting different projections. The board of estimates kept coming back and changing their numbers. And then obviously when our new president took over and started making some changes, especially with so many counties like Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Charles County, who heavily depend on the federal government, it started to make our budget issues, started to worsen our budget issues. Of course, the folks down there wanted to blame all of our budget issues on the White House, which we reminded them many times that these problems we were already looking at. The majority of these problems we were already looking at way before the new guy got into the White House. But anyhow, so the budget, there was tons of different taxes that were thrown out there, and one of the victories, I'll say, is there was a business-to-business tax that was proposed, and it's been brought in the past that would apply. When in the past they were trying to apply the sales tax to essentially all services. This business-to-business tax was going to be for 2.5%, and the sponsor was the only person who testified that day in favor of the bill. The other 200 people, I think, who testified were against the bill. I think it was McCormick, definitely McCormick. I think T. Rowe Price, maybe an Under Armour showed up. Those were kind of the three big guys, and I think hearing McCormick basically threaten that they were going to leave Hunt Valley if they passed that bill was basically enough for the leadership to say, yeah, we're going to probably pass on this one. And so what they ended up doing, instead of having that tax, they ended up, and several others, there was a soda tax proposed. There was all kind of different things. The big one that they ended up going with was the 3%. IT services, data and IT services tax, which obviously still affects several people in this room. Probably, the business tax was going to affect a far larger group of people. Still not good. A couple of the other taxes, and I'll just kind of run through a couple highlights here. These are taxes that did pass. There's a couple new tax brackets, established a 2% surcharge on capital gains for filers with income over $350. Repealed the sales tax exemption for sales of photographic and artistic material used in advertising. Applied a 3.5% excise tax to short-term rental vehicles. Increased the securities agent fee. Rental property lead registration fee was established. I could go down. There's a lot of these are related to a lot of these are related to your vehicles and what goes on with the MVA, and you'll see that coming very, very soon if you got to go there. I do want to go over a couple what I like to, let me back up here. So as Delegate Rose was saying, we offer amendments on the floor, and we did have kind of a record-breaking number of floor amendments that were accepted. For the budget and taxes, on that day, we spent 7 hours on the floor. And our Republican caucus, collectively, we introduced over 30 amendments covering a variety of subjects. The one I did had to do with creating a carve-out for SaaS, for software as a service, pulling that out of the bill. They did not accept it. But the point of doing the amendments, and I think this is important, especially on the House side, the Senate side is generally, and if you talk to a senator from 10 years, 20 years ago, they'll tell you the Senate now is completely, crazy. But still, I think most people will agree that the Senate is still generally somewhat more moderate. They have a little more common sense than the House. But so what the strategy that we have over in the House is we basically just kind of rip the bills apart on the floor. We ask tough questions. We force the majority party to have to explain why they're doing things. We force them to vote on our amendments. And what happens is, over on the Senate side, they're watching our conversations over in the House, and they're seeing these conversations, and they're looking at each other, these senators sometimes, and they're thinking, I'm not going to be the one. I'm not going to defend that crap. Are you kidding me? I don't want to have to defend that garbage over here. And so our strategy a lot of times is to make things, especially on some of these bills that get into more controversial topics, put them in an uncomfortable position to where the Democrats over on the Senate side, none of them want to have to defend this stuff. And we saw this several times this year where there were bills that were either officially killed or bills that just went nowhere in the Senate because no Democrats wanted to carry the water over on the other side. So that's kind of the condoms for kiddies bill. If you didn't catch that one on the news, that was probably one of the larger wins. It was a bill that currently it's illegal to have a vending machine in a daycare facility or public schools that sells condoms, Plan B, that kind of stuff. And so this bill was repealing that prohibition. So we had obviously a very uncomfortable conversation on the House floor. We had very common sense amendments that said, all right, maybe we can see it in high school, maybe middle school, I don't know. But what is the justification for needing this in an elementary school and a daycare facility? And so they had to defend it. They had to go on the record voting against our amendments. And then when this carried over to the Senate side, I can say with great certainty that from some good contacts I have, that the governor's office, the governor saw this happen, and he said, are you freaking kidding me? Why, with all the stuff going on, we got this budget, we have taxes, energy, are we wasting our time on arguing over whether we should have condoms in daycare facilities? I want this to be put to sleep. And usually with Democrats, when one of their bills is going to die, it usually just gets put in, as we call it, the desk, and it just meets a quiet death. But in this case, they had a very public execution of this bill. They actually voted on it in committee and voted it down, which, I was asking Delegate Susan Krebs the other night, she couldn't remember in her 20 years of ever seeing a Democrat's bill get voted down in committee. Usually they just never go to a vote. So the folks at the top were disgusted with the fact that this legislation even made it out of our committee. On the House side, so they gave it a very public execution. Yeah, and it made some national news too. So I think I've gone over my 5 minutes, but happy to answer any questions and talk about a couple more little victories we had and some things we're bringing back to Carroll. So appreciate it.
We did kill one.
Much.
One other time we voted a bill down immediately after the hearing, and that was Delegate Hill's. We're going to ban football bill. And rec football. And it wasn't even just rec football. It was no heading in soccer. What? No heading in soccer. We called it the kill all the fun bill. And the head at the time, who actually now works for the governor, he came around to us, and kids flooded that place. It was real windy that day, filled with kids and their parents, and everybody was mad. And he said, you good with staying late? We're going to kill this bill. I'm like, heck yeah, let's kill it immediately. She brought it back like 4 times, but we killed it every time. So, one other thing, I made a note. Let's see. Oh, with the IT tax. So most of you probably know at this point that I'm an IT recruiter for a small veteran-owned defense contractor. And I know we have Zach in here and others. So it's not just the IT services. If you have a website, that's going to get taxed. who here has a business and doesn't have a website? That's everybody. So it's very bad. It's a very, very bad tax. And, you know, we talk about being so close. Maryland's a small state. And this point was made on the floor many, many times. If you are a company that does IT services, are you going to come to Maryland, or are you going to go to Fairfax County, Virginia? You're going to go there. Oh, yeah, and Delegate Crosby, who is the vice chair of my committee, has an IT services company. While this debate was going on, he was packing up his IT services company and moving it to Virginia, moving it to Richmond. So it was a very interesting dynamic. So
Still vice chairman next year.
if he's still vice chairman next year, we'll
He
see.
might get the can.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so I think we do have some time for questions. Do we have anybody with a question? Oh, come on. Okay. John?
Just a couple things. Thank you for the delegates for coming. I appreciate all your work. I was on this committee, on the committee for many, many, many years, listening to a lot of things, and I've never seen a worse year than this. Never in my 50 years. My family owns a small business here in Westminster that's 106 years old. The sooner the state realizes with all these taxes they're doing, you're going to, like you said, you're going to have businesses are going to move out of the state. And that's sad. And I mean, they just have to realize that, you know, we're going to lose a lot of businesses if they keep on doing the, you know, conducting themselves the way they conduct themselves. I was appalled by this session. I didn't follow it closely, but generally I knew what was going on. So, you know, it's tough times ahead, folks. Really, it's going to be bad times ahead if this continues. And I offer an out to this. Y'all can go to South Carolina with me because I live there most of the year. So.
And people talked often about moving, and it's mostly the rural areas. We get it, because I can go to Pennsylvania and go shopping. The people in the Eastern Shore, they're right near the Delaware line. You know, if you live in Southern Maryland, you can be in Virginia. People are not going to stay, but their favorite phrase is, well, that's just a false narrative. They truly, I think, many of them believe what they're saying. It's just like when the whales were washing up dead because of the windmills, they said, oh, that's not really happening. Like, well, there's a dead whale right there. It died yesterday. So, you know, we don't have them yet on the shore, and I actually don't think they're ever going to build those windmills, but we'll see. But that's what they believe in, is windmills and solar. They're realizing that that's not going to be enough to power our state. So now they're backtracking a little bit on natural gas. I don't know when natural gas became so evil. I don't really get that. And they're also talking about small nuclear. So they're getting the idea that this is not going to work. But that doesn't save us from these power lines trashing our county, and we're going to have more of them than anybody in that program.
To what is this one? Yeah, okay. To what you were saying about this is going to chase businesses out, going back to the business tax, and I was just talking to somebody outside about this. The sponsor of that bill, obviously a Democrat, somebody who's in leadership. I was talking to him one of the final days of session, and I had talked to him about this bill before, and he didn't want to do this bill. The way that the Democrat Party is set up, and quite frankly, it's probably the same way if you go to Texas with the Republicans or something. I don't know, but the way that the majority party is set up, it is the leadership is basically telling everybody else what to do and how to vote and everything. Our caucus is not set up that way. And I'm not just saying it's because, we're the Republicans. It might be the reverse in states where Republicans run things. But anyhow, I was talking to him about this bill, about the business-to-business tax, and he said that he had asked the folks in leadership, do we have polling numbers showing, are there any districts, are there any legislative districts that the constituents would support this tax, that they look at this tax favorably? And they came back and they said, no, there's not one district in the state of Maryland that would want this tax. And it was like, great, so I guess I'm doing this. Because he was trying to push it off to if they could find one district, he was going to push it off to that legislator. But there was not one district, not in, super far left Montgomery County that wants this. There's no constituency out there who wants this stuff. So I don't know how long they can keep pushing this kind of stuff and passing these kind of things before people eventually just have enough. But
Yes.
I was just curious about cannabis taxes. I know they were raising them to 12%. I didn't know if that could potentially be changed, meaning could they even increase it more in the future years? I just didn't know if you guys had more information about the cannabis tax.
It's funny because that did go through my committee originally when we did legalized it, and our committee chair was adamantly against even taxing it at the same as alcohol. He wanted it to be 6% because he was convinced that they were going to put all of them in places like where he comes from Prince George's County or in Calvert County. And so now all of a sudden it went to 9, I think. If they changed it to 9, originally 9, and now it's 12. So it's funny. What's so important, just a few short years ago, they will tax anything that moves. So when we go back down there, I don't know if they'll do that one again right away, but I can guarantee you they'll either up the liquor tax, they'll probably move alcohol and liquor to 12 to match the cannabis. I would anticipate that. One thing that didn't pass this year that I've always been against is selling beer and wine in grocery stores. They bring that bill every single year, and somebody draws the short straw, like they say. Their leadership makes them carry the bill. And that's when they'll pack my committee room. I'm adamantly against doing that, and I understand the convenience aspect that some people talk about. However, that will kill every small liquor store, every small business that sells that in our state, and I'm against doing that. So that's a small victory, I guess.
I'll add this. Thanks for asking about the cannabis tax. I think the reason they keep coming back raising these taxes, or sin taxes, so to speak, cannabis, the alcohol, tobacco, gambling, is because it goes back to what I mentioned earlier about changing the equation. Their forecasted net revenue gain always comes up short, and they keep chasing their tail and digging the hole deeper. In addition to that, these taxes are attacking the poorest in our community and our minority communities. And let's face it, if you're a Joe six-pack, you work hard, you want to get your beer or cigarettes or cannabis, you go home and relax, you're paying more and more taxes to sustain this. And then when we hear this lie, we want to raise taxes on those things to reduce consumption. That is a bold-faced lie, and here's why. Like any business person, that's a revenue stream. Once you get hooked up to that revenue stream, you don't want people to drink less. You don't want people to smoke less because you equate those things to your revenue. So it's all a false front that they put up. And yes, next year they might say, oh, we're not getting them that cannabis tax we thought. We got to raise it again. And it's this vicious circle we're in. And until people start electing a different type of elected official to represent them, this is a downward spiral stuck in. So I'm hoping that the next election people wake up and then we have more people to work with down there. We are so heavily outnumbered. It's disheartening, but we keep the faith. Thanks for asking the question.
I believe there was, yes.
There are some 80,000 acres in ag preservation in Carroll County. If they want to install or force us to allow solar on those ag pres lands, is someone going to reimburse the county for the money we spent to purchase those ag pres easements?
Yeah, am I still on? Okay. Yeah, so there's two things there with the solar, and especially with Carroll County. So our commissioners a couple of years back, they had they made it so you could not put solar panels on land that was zoned for agricultural purposes. You could put it on industrial, commercial, whatever, but not ag. So what we started to see over the last year was, I think we're up to like 8 or so now solar farms that the commissioners, basically essentially rejected. And so these folks have gone around Carroll County and they've gone to the Public Service Commission and where they'll approve all these. Well, legislatively, they found a fix to this by this year passing and saying that you can put solar panels on land zoned for agricultural purposes. Now, to what you're talking about with land that was put in ag pres, that's what Delia Rose had said earlier, which is that they have actually they're now allowing that. I think that you can put up to 5% you can put solar panels on up to 5% of land that's been zoned that's in ag pres. So now we're not even just talking about land that's zoned for agricultural purposes, but these are people who have put their land, who have worked with the county or the state or both. And to your point of whether the county is going to get reimbursed, I don't know. Was that brought up in your committee? But we had lengthy debates on this on the floor about how this is an issue across the whole. This is an issue across the whole country with food shortages and not enough farmers. And here we are, encouraging folks to essentially not use their ag land to farm, but instead to slap solar panels on it, which, for some of these people, I understand farming is not easy. It's a lot easier, and these solar panel companies, they're aggressive. If they show up to your house and they say, hey, you don't have to farm anymore and you'll get a check in the mail every day. Like, who might argue that? But the point is that we have worked so hard in Carroll County for decades, back to the 70s, to reach this 100,000 acre ag pres goal, and now we're just going to be, and now folks are going to be allowed to use, land that they worked out a deal with the county to slap solar panels on, and that was one of the most heartbreaking days. We spent hours on the floor. Once again, I think we had a dozen or so amendments, and that was an ugly day.
And that debate in particular was very frustrating because we have always fought for property rights here, and that has always been something that I've cared deeply about. Yet we cannot develop in most of our county because of the tier system that Martin O'Malley passed back in 2012, I think it was. And so if you're on well and septic, they were talking about, that's the right of the farmer. If he doesn't want to farm anymore, that's his property right. And the more he said property rights, the madder I was getting. And I said, you're talking about property rights. I said, you took away our property rights. So we have to shove all of our development down in the south part of the county where we have public utilities, and we can't even give farmers the right. Farmers typically, I'm not a farmer, so I'm no expert. But a lot of times they are land rich but cash poor, and everything is based on the weather. You don't know what kind of year you're going to have. You don't know what's going to happen with any of the weather or anything like that. And so a lot of farmers wanted those development rights so that if they wanted to build a house for a child, or maybe they wanted to build 5 spot lots, and make some money to get equipment, to buy grain, to do whatever they need to do. That's what farmers do. And when they took those development rights away, they stripped their property rights. They took them away. They took away all of their equity. And that, to me, is disgusting, and it's wrong. And then they sit there and espouse solar, and because they call it a farm, they say, well, it's still farming. No, it's not. Sorry, I got on my soapbox.
And I'm sorry, we are out of time for questions. So I want to take a minute to thank our delegation here. Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming. And I do want to thank the members of our legislative committee that are here. I see Jim McCarron, if you could stand. Okay. Got Zach Townley. Got Jen Johnson in the back. Okay. And Robert Plant here. And I think that's it for who's present, but there are several others. I can't do it without you. So I'm very happy that you're here and that you continue to participate. So I'm going to turn it back to Richard. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Dana. I'm going to do my best mic impression here to promote all of the upcoming events that are coming for the Chamber and hope that you will participate. But first, let me thank Dana and the delegation. We appreciate you coming here every year to give us what's happened with our legislative session. I also want to thank the Legislative Committee and, again, to our sponsors, the Carroll Community College, Tomlin Technology, and, of course, CMC. Upcoming 2025 Carroll Biz Challenge. I know you've heard about it, but also want to encourage you to spread the word about it. This year, the grand prize is $10,000, and we're taking applications right now through the end of May. Taking applications also for Leadership Carroll class of 2026, and there's also a waiting list. So we encourage folks to take advantage of the waiting list if they want to get on that this year. And we have the trips going to Austria and Germany in December for the Christmas market, and you can find brochures on the table so that you can take advantage of that great opportunity. Don't forget, May 20th is our annual Public Safety Awards that's held as sponsored through our foundation. And it's a great opportunity really to thank and show our appreciation for our first responders and how they help keep our community safe. Of course, you can always check the website. There's lots of great events there. And as Mike would always say, keep your money local, shop local, and always check out our website because you get a chance to support our other chamber members. And with that, I'm going to bring this event to a close and thank all of you for attending. Have a great day.